Ready. Good evening. Tonight I'm going to continue with what we started actually 3 weeks ago, because the last 2 weeks I wasn't here. I was away in Dallas and then I was away in seminar. But Baruch Hashem, I'm glad to be back. And we will continue with few lectures that I wanted to speak about emunah, about faith, about confidence in Hashem. When you search today carefully what is going on in the world today, you're going to find something very, very interesting. Almost in every problem that the people have today in the world, if you're going to dig to search for the source of the problem, for the root of the problem, it's always going to come down to the same root. Always. One problem. Not two. One. Always the same problem. Who knows what it is? Of course, the subject that we have to speak about tonight. Lack of faith in God. No faith, no emunah whatsoever. What do I mean by that? I'll make a test with you. Any problem that a person has in life, you can throw it, and I'm going to show you that it's a problem of emunah. Depression, you should know that since 1960 until today, 47 years, the number of the depressed people in the world grew 10 times more. Which means we have today, in less than 50 years later, we have more than 10 times more depressed people. If it's going to continue to grow like this, that means in another 50 years we're going to have 100 times more. Which means eventually almost every person in the world will be depressed. Now when I say depression, it could be a month depression, it could be a year, it could be years. Sometimes people get into depression, they never come out of it. What's the source of problems? Agony, pain, jealousy, sadness, anger, stealing, pride. Everything connects to the same thing. Lack of confidence in Hashem. All the marriage problems, almost all of them, is because of no emunah in Hashem. If people have emunah in Hashem, they know everything that happened for good, and Hashem send them the test, they will never bother with terminating the relationship. Whether his wife is nice to him, whether she's not so nice, he will take it as a part of the test that he has to pass in this life. Not only he wouldn't be upset, he will be very happy that now Hashem put him in this test. He has to pass the test. Bottom line, to make long story short, if we take a person 70 years old, that worked all his life very, very hard, and he will agree now when he's 70 years old, you will come to him and give him a glass with medicine and say, Mister, we know you've been very successful in your businesses. We know you've been very wealthy. You have, let's say, about $100 million in your account. We're offering you the magic, the wonder, the magic medicine. What is it? If you drink that, you will never have worry, agony, pain, stress, jealousy, a confidence problem. You're never going to be insecure. You'll be very satisfied. And you will have perfect happiness with one glass of medicine. But the price for that will be $99 million. So he has $100 million. And they're offering him after 70 years in order for him to live for the rest of his life, which nobody really knows how long it's going to be. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years if he's lucky. Im bigvurot 80 shana, let's already consider more as a gift, as an extra years. After 70, every day of your life is extra. Up to 70, it's average. Got to 80, that's already gvurot. That means it's a bonus. I'm not talking of those who make it to 110, 120. They already have a combination of bonuses, one after the other. But we're talking Someone 70 years old, they're offering him all the list of the things I say. Perfect happiness, no anger, no agony, no pain, no jealousy, no worry about anything, no stress. Bottom line, peace of mind. 100% peace of mind. Happiness. This is what everyone searched for all their life. For $99 million. The answer would be, of course. What life worth without happiness, without peace of mind? Most people are going out of their mind from their lifestyle. So the point is like this. We have in our Torah a shortcut. It's very, very fast and it's very, very cheap. Mamash, an opportunity of a lifetime. 1 month of serious study when it comes to Emunah. 1 month. Serious study, few hours every day, push it into your subconscious constantly, and you will have $99 million in your pocket. Because you would pay any amount of money if you had to get to peace of mind. So comes the Torah and say, pay attention. If you're going to have confidence in me, and you know that everything is by me, and I supply you with everything you have, and you never worry about tomorrow, nobody in the world will be happier than you. What's the key to gain happiness? The more your emunah is growing and become more substantial, your happiness constantly is growing. It's parallel. This and this going together. One depend on the other. Most of our problem comes like this. If you bought a computer today, the computer, it's only the hardware. Now you have to put in the software. You're going to decide what combinations the computer will be able to do for you. If you want, for instance, you want to do math in a computer, so it needs software for math. If you want an engine to search for things, so you need either connection to the internet, you need to put some kind of software in order for the computer to be able to function in this way or that way. That's up to you. However, if you're putting a software with a bug or a virus or as a mistake, whoever programmed that software made a mistake, simple mistake, then the computer freezes. The computer doesn't work. The computer will not fulfill the functions that it was made for. The computer can be $5,000 computer, a very, very good computer that just came out, whatever, with all the extra technology that they make every day is something new. Problem with the software, the computer is really worthless. I don't have to tell you that sometimes people just bought computer, 1 or 2 emails, the virus went on a computer and destroyed it. That's it. The computer cannot be fixed. Why do I tell you the story about the computer? Because in our life, our brain is the hardware, it's the computer, and what we are pushing into the computer, that's the software. The problem that we have right now is that the brain is a robot. He doesn't know anything. He's programmed in a certain way to work. What you push in, this is the way it works. So I'll give you an example. If you're going to talk to your brain every day and say, I'm lonely, I'm miserable, my life is worthless, this, all the time you're going to say it, the information goes into your computer is, you're in a serious problem. So what's the way the computer reacts? The computer reacts in agony, in pain, in stress, white hair, a nerves problem, anger, all kinds of things. If you're going to say to the computer, I lift very heavy boxes, I hope I didn't hurt my back, the computer gets nervous and the computer starts sending through the nerve system pain into the back. Why it sends pain? Because this is the way God made it. God made a computer to function in trillions of combinations. How is it going to work? It depends what information you push in. Most of our problems in life is that we let the computer receive the wrong information. And that's now a chain reaction. Since we pushed into our computer a lot of nonsense information, very serious problems, it's a chain reaction. We suffer constantly. For instance, when we went to school, the genius teachers that we had told us that life is about luck. Mazal. Everything is coincidence, luck. you got to be lucky. If you be a thief, make sure you don't get caught. If you do this, the way they taught us about life was everything against the truth of life. Nothing but the truth over there. There was no truth over there. Over the years, we constantly push the wrong information into the brain. So the brain is functioning according to the information we put in. For instance, when we left the house in the morning and we got to an accident, the computer automatically sends the message that if you would leave 5 minutes later, it wouldn't happen. But that's nonsense. It has nothing to do with what time you left. It was all planned because Hashem wanted you to have that test. Since the computer doesn't have the ability to send you the right information, because you never enter the right information, because you don't believe, when you enter the information, you enter it into your brain that this accident is coincidence. Somebody stole from you, you have to take revenge on him. He's the thief. You got to go into a war with him. You got to take him to court. You have to fight with him. You have to break his head. You must do something about it. You send him the mafia to collect. This is the way you've been trained all your life. So the way your brain is working is that you walk in a world with millions of enemies around you. Every person is a potential enemy. However, for instance, if you would educate your brain that nothing in this world can hurt you but yourself, everything that happened to you, you actually cook and now you have to eat, then right away nobody in the world will be your enemy. You would not have a problem with one person all your life. Why? Because this person is a shadow, is nothing. It's dust in the wind. He took a gun and shot at me. It wasn't really him. Hashem shot at me right now to wake me up. I lost my money. Hashem sent his hand and took the money out of my pocket. How did he do it? Through that guy. Why Hashem himself didn't come and take it from me? Because the way Hashem runs the world is like a game hide and seek. Hide and seek. You know how the kids are playing? They're hiding and one has to find them. So if a person is hiding very well, you can never know he's around. But he does things behind your back, but you don't know he's around. Same thing, this is the way Hashem is playing with us. Why Hashem does it to us? When Hashem created the world, he wasn't really hiding. He was open and in front of everyone. In the Exodus of Egypt, people heard his voice, people saw the miracles. Moshe took a piece of wood, threw it into the water became sweet. People saw right away Hashem is around. Later, the Torah says, Bayom ha'u astir panai mihem. There will be a time that I will be so disgusted by the way you behave. At that moment on, I'm going to go and hide. You're not going to be able to find me unless if you're going to search very, very severely. You're going to have to check. You're going to have to work very hard to find me. And this is the lecture tonight. How do you find Hashem? So we have to go back to square one. First of all, when we ask about the purpose of the creation, why did Hashem create this world? It's a very complicated question. Thousands of pages were written about that. And until this moment, it's not 100% clear. But the little that we know is one of the most important things that we must know. Without it, we have no point to live. Life is worthless without it. Is that Hashem is anxious, if we can use that word, anxious that his children will be very close to him. But there is a rule, there's a system here. Even though the father is very anxious that his son will be close to him and depend on him and speaks to him in every moment of his life, whether he's in a car, whether he's in a shul, whether he's on the road, whether before he closes his eyes, whether he's in a business, before the meeting, after the meeting, in every second that possible, instead of wasting his time reading newspaper or watching sport and all the nonsense that people do today in today's life, Hashem is anxious that you speak to him. Call him, scream to him, cry to him, beg him, ask for help, only from him. That's one thing that Hashem is very anxious. Second, Hashem is very anxious that you will recognize that there's nothing but him in this life. Nothing. All the people are here. It's all an illusion. Nobody can hurt you. Nobody can steal a penny from you. And nobody can either harm you and nobody can help you. It's all an illusion. What you really think that the messenger found you a job, it's nothing to do with him. Hashem gave him a gift. What was his reward? That Hashem gave him an opportunity to be a good messenger and find you the job. But Hashem did everything. He was only the postman that came and served you with the paper. If you won the lottery, the postman come, knock on your door, here, sir, we have good news for you. If, God forbid, you have a tragedy, the postman knock on your door, he serve you the paper. In either way, he does not deserve too much of a credit. He is only a messenger. The problem that we have today, that we think that the messenger does 90-95% and Hashem does 5%. It should be the other way around. It should be 99.9% we understand that Hashem does everything. The messenger does one drop. And therefore, if we understand that Hashem does everything, we won't waste too much time on a messenger. We won't be extra nice to him. We won't pretend. We won't beg him. We won't call him 10 times and beg him and leave messages. If he gave you a check that bounced, you would call once, and if you see play games, you will never call again. Why? Because you know he has nothing. He's just a puppet. There's nothing here. Hashem bounced my check. I have nothing to do with this idiot. Don't beg him. Same thing with the policeman on the road. You will never beg him. Don't give me the ticket, please. I'm going to have points. My insurance will go up. Everything in our life will be different. The truth is that if people would live with confidence in this world, the world will be a very sweet place to be in. Rule number 1, you will not have poor people. Why? All the billionaires that keep all the money for themselves will share to everybody. The Jewish nation has more money than they need. Way more. The problem is that the 5, 6, 7, 10% of the billionaires that got hundreds of millions or billions or sometimes even more than that, they give a little bit and they keep almost everything to themselves. Why they keep everything to themselves? Because their psychology is that I don't have enough. I'm in a competition with all the others. Very rarely we find somebody that make billions and give almost everything out and leave himself just enough to live comfortable life. Very rarely. Few in a generation. You can count them on one hand. You should have been with every billionaire like this. The billionaires unfortunately had a lot to learn from this guy, Gates, that already been giving out billions. If they behave like this guy, the Jewish nation will be in a very good condition. You would not have any beggars on the street. Nobody would have to have problems sleeping at night. There would be foundations. There will be kosher rabbis handling those foundations. Every poor person will have problems, will get a budget. Everybody will have comfortable life. Why are we suffering so much? Because the 10% stole all the money from the 90%. That's another problem. Second, people would live, if the world would have confidence, you would not have any thieves. No murderers. No angry people. No problems in traffic. No jealousy. Nobody would harm anyone. No revenge. No court. No problems. No lawyers. The doctors would hardly have what to do. Most of the jobs that the doctor have today is people panicking. Really, the truth is that only in very rare cases you need to go to the doctor. Today, every little beep that the baby makes, the mother is already 3 hours by the doctor. Every 2-3 days, she's by the doctor. That's lack of confidence. No confidence in Hashem. The doctor will save my son. He has a fever. He has ear infection. Every 2 days, she's by the doctor. A little bit more confidence in Hashem. Nobody needs doctors, hardly. Only when it's really no other way, then the Torah gave permission to go to doctors. Another way the world will be a very good place to be here is that people would live very modest life. Nobody would like such comfortable life in this world because everybody would understand that what Hashem promised, that the real life will start only after death. Nobody would waste so much time of building buildings here and pretending that he is the king of the world and going into vacation, then another vacation and buy a boat. All this nonsense will disappear from the face of the earth. Even the Goyim wouldn't waste time on it. So I'm just giving you a few examples. Because we enter the wrong information into the brain, the world is a mess. No order, agony, pain, crime, problems. Almost every person is a liar. Almost, if you look at the average person today, he says in the average day more lies than truth. Every day. Almost every phone call is a lie. Almost every salesman is a liar. So many people are living in a lie. People are phony. People are forging. People are lying. People are pretending. All this comes from what? No confidence in Hashem. No confidence in Hashem. Confidence in Hashem? Why should I pretend? Why should I steal? Why should I lie? Why should I pretend? Why? It's against me. I'm going to be punished, to get punished in the end. All that show that I put, even though it looks right now I was very successful pretending and the person fell into the trap, eventually I'm going to lose big time. It's only an illusion that you're successful because it's a part of the free choice. Where is the proof in the Torah that Hashem is very angry on a person that doesn't have confidence in him? Who knows? Where? There's a story in the Torah that leaves no doubt. Yosef is one example. Where else? Who else? Who knows? Moshe. That's already questionable. Go ahead. Yaakov, it's another example. Avraham, it's another example. But there's a best example. I want to ask you a question. A person that works and put aside money for saving. He has a saving plan, IRA, whatever you want to call it. A person that saves money, he does a positive thing or negative things? Pretending the future of his children. What do you think? A person make $10,000 a month, it costs him $7,000 to live. What does he do? He takes $3,000 every month and put it in a saving, in a safe, in a bank, in a special saving plan. Is this a mitzvah or is this an avera? Or none? None of them. What do you think? Huh? What do you say? The truth is, this is a reason for Hashem to be very angry at you. Where do we see it in the Torah? When Hashem said, every day I'm going to give you enough man, enough bread for what you need. Do not keep anything for tomorrow. Not for another 10 years. For the next 5 years. For the 30 years plan. For tomorrow, another 5-6 hours you keep for the next meal. Now it's night. Now, right, we are on Sunday night now. It's already Monday according to Judaism now. So now, if 5 hours ago, before the sunset, 3 hours ago, we had enough man, we have leftover, we wanted to eat dinner. So we put a little bit, we put a quarter pound of man for tomorrow breakfast. You know what happened? You come in the morning, it was full of warm and green mold. What do you call it? Mold. Why? What's the problem? What's the crime? A person leaves a little bit for tomorrow. Hashem say no. By doing such a thing, you show that you have no faith in me. That you think I'm a liar. That what I promise is not the truth. It's a big thing. Now tell me please. It sounds that I'm maybe not normal, but that's in the Torah. You cannot argue with that. There's such examples in the Torah that when a person always worries about the future, he is automatically very far away from Hashem. And now what happened as results of that? As results that the person is worried what's going to be tomorrow, and we all worry, let's not lie, but one worry more than the other. Some people worry more, some people less. Some people cannot leave their cigarettes and they're shaking all day because they worry how are they going to pay the mortgage in 2 weeks. And some people say, well, Hashem Yazor. They begin to pray to Hashem and the miracles happen. But the point is like this. Not to have a worry, your life is mamash heaven already here, before you even go to the next world. If you don't have anything to worry about, and you know whatever happened, I'm not going to kill myself. What does it mean? I have money to pay the mortgage? Beautiful. I don't have? What's going to happen? They're going to put me in the street? Very good. Why very good? Because Hashem wanted it. If Hashem didn't want it, He would not let me go on the street. Since now I'm in the street in the freezing weather, Hashem wants me in this situation. Hashem wants me in this situation. Hashem promised in the Torah that in any given moment you're always going to get the best. What's best for you. However, we have a problem here. I want to ask you a question. A person that has an open heart surgery and he loses 6 months of work and he go bankrupt. And when he goes out of the hospital, he can hardly move. He cannot find a job. He has about $100,000 money that he owes people. And comes the rabbi to his house and say, hey, I want to tell you, this is the best thing that could happen to you. I'm mamash jealous with you. So the guy would say, listen, if you came to make jokes at me, I'm not interested. But the truth is the rabbi really didn't lie. Why? Because he only told him what Hashem says in the Torah, that Hashem, Kol man de'avid rachmana latav avid. Everything that you get from Hashem, whether you like it, whether you understand, whether you don't understand, whether you don't like it, it's the best thing that could have happened to you at that second. On that moment, on that hour, nothing in the entire world could have been better for you. You cry, you upset, you sit on the floor, you have no energy to get up in the morning. Why? Because your life looks black, clouds around you, you don't see the light in the end of the tunnel. At this moment, nothing could have been better for you. The fact that you don't understand that it's good for you, obviously you understand that we are limited. We have no way to know what's good for us, what's bad. Some of us thought that our life is great until one day we found out it was all an illusion. Some of us thought that our life is terrible until in the end we realized that it was the best thing happening for us, but we just didn't realize. So nobody can swear that what he is going through right now is really going to be productive in the end. There's no way to know. Only Hashem, after many, many lives, will prove to you that in any moment, if it would be indifferent, your life would be a million times worse. So the question is, when the Rav told him all that things, after he came up from the hospital, so he should be now happy or he should be upset? Depend. Now, for sure, the thing that happened to him was the best thing that could have happened. The best. However, there's one thing he should be upset about. What sins did I made that Hashem needed to send me 6 months to the hospital to clean those sins? Obviously, Hashem could have reacted in a much worse way. And Hashem chose right now to give me with His mercy that this is what I need. It could have been a lot worse. But I brought it to myself. I gotta be upset. What I brought to myself, it could have been better. Now since it happened, it's too late. What's the solution? Tshuva and prayer. There's nothing else you can do. You have to pray to Hashem to ask for forgiveness, and you always have to ask in every open second of your life. I'm telling you, it's not fanatic, it's not too much. It's the minimum that a person that wants to be righteous has to do every day. Talk to Hashem hours every day. On traffic, you're an hour on traffic, you know how many psalms of Tehillim you could have said in that hour? You don't have Tehillim, you speak to Hashem in your own language. Why do you worry? You're alone in a car, nobody listens. Don't worry, you don't have a tape under the chair. You listen, you talk to Hashem. You go on a bed, before you go to sleep, you say Shema Yisrael. You have about 5-6 minutes until you fall asleep. It's a great opportunity. You're on the way, you're on the bus, anywhere you are, in any opportunity, you know how life becomes better. Because right now, you are connected. You are connected to the Master of Universe. If you don't talk to Him, you already have a big problem. Now, some things in life needs little prayers. Some things needs a lot of prayer. There are certain things in life, you pray 1 hour, you get it. Some things in life, you need to pray 50 hours. Some things in life, you need 500 hours. Certain things in life, you can pray 40 years until Hashem agrees to give it to you. However, what happens if a person pray for something that for that Hashem decided in order for him to get it, he needs to pray 2,000 hours. And the person over his life pray not 2,000 hours, 1,800 hours, and he died. What happened to the 1,800 hours? Each word is a huge reward. To lose, there's no way to lose. No matter whether you got it, whether you didn't get it, the actual prayer is a mitzvah from the Torah. You open up the Rambam, there's a mitzvah to every Jew at least once a day to have a private conversation with his Creator. If one day passed and he did not pray, he violated the rules like not putting tefillin. Same thing. The text in a Siddur, it's all from Rabbanan. But the obligation to pray at least once a day, every Jew, female, male, everybody has this obligation to speak to Hashem. You don't have Siddur, you speak to Him in your own language. You in jail, you don't have Siddur, even there you can speak to Him in your own language. No matter where you are, whether you have Siddur, whether you don't have Siddur, you always can earn trillions just by talking. You're on the road, you walk on Shabbat. Somebody invited you, it's 20 minutes walk. Most people in the world, what do? Walk, looking around, looking at stores, listening to the cars, smelling the smoke of all the buses. There's another way. This person walked 20 minutes and he walked 20 minutes. He walked 20 minutes, he said Tehillim all the way. Every step he made, he was earning mitzvot every step. You don't know Tehillim? I assure you, you know. You pray every day. Almost all the prayer is parts from Tehillim. You can say the same Mizmor 50 times. Shir LaMa'alot everybody knows, right? You don't know anything else, you say Shir LaMa'alot 50 times. Huge reward. Walking and earning at the same time. You never thought of it. You walk, what do? Nothing. Speak to your friends, walking around, looking around, half sleeping. You walk on the way to shul, you can say Mizmorim. No matter what you say, you can earn non-stop. The actual mitzvah of being close to Hashem, it's affecting your life tremendously. But it gets even better. There's a big question, how confidence affects our life. I already mentioned that it saves us from pain, it saves us from agony, it saves us from heart attack, it saves us from so many sicknesses. It saves us from anger, it saves us from depression, it saves us from have to be a liar, it saves us from arguments, from fights, from all kinds of problems. It can save us right away. With 1 month of efforts to elevate our level in confidence, our life can be sweet, mamash sweet, peace of mind, everything. But it's something even better than this. Did you ever know that everything you can get in life, it's 100% in your hand? Did you know that? People happen to think, listen, I want ABC, and Hashem want DEF. רבות מחשבות בלב איש ועצת השם היא תקום. There's many thoughts in the mind of a person, David HaMelech right, but always the advice of Hashem will go through in the end. However, we should know one thing. According to the level of the confidence that you have, this is how fast you're going to get what you want. Even if you're not so righteous, just the fact that your confidence in Hashem, that Hashem will not let you down, and He's going to listen to what you speak, and He's going to give you what you want. If you show Hashem that you have nothing but Him, you're not begging anybody, you're not killing yourself, you're not working 3 shifts, you're not working until midnight. You say to Hashem, first of all, Hashem, what needs to be done? Now I have to pray, I have to pray. After that I have to learn, I have to learn. I have an appointment, I'm losing money, I'm losing business, that's nonsense. Nobody in history ever lost a penny or anything that you can call it a loss by listening and doing the wish of his God, of his Creator. It's impossible. Hashem is not worse than us. If somebody is doing everything we tell him, if we have a business and we have an employee that listens and is very faithful to us, he does a lot for us. He gives up some of his free time. He stays in his lunch break sometimes when he sees it's very busy. He cleans even when we don't tell him. He's trying to satisfy us as we are the boss. He's trying to satisfy us very much, even when we're not asking him to do it. What's our reaction gonna be? We want to harm him or we want to benefit him? What's the common sense? Even if we are not such good people. Even if you're not a good person, even if you're cruel, even if you're arrogant, whatever you are, just the fact that you have 2 employees and one is trying very hard and the other don't care, you want to benefit the one who is doing for you, no matter who you are. You agree? Even if you're goy, even if you're criminal. This is the minimum of the reaction that we should have. Are we going to think that Hashem is worse than us? We are so far from being perfect, we're going to react measure for measure. You're good with me, I'll be good with you. You'll be bad with me, maybe I'll be bad with you, which is also bad. But the fact that if you be very good with me, it's going to be very difficult for me to return bad to you. I have to be very ungrateful to return to you bad for the good you did for me. Am I better than God? Common sense. I'm not talking about the promises in the Torah hundreds of times that Hashem will reward all his followers 100% without leaving a drop out. Everybody gets in the end what he deserves. I'm not talking about the promises. I'm just talking common sense. Without Torah, a person just born today never heard of the Torah. He knows he has a creator because he sees the world. He knows somebody is running the show here. It's obvious. And what's gonna be now? I'm going to do positive things for humanity, and I'm going to lose because of that? It's impossible. Nevertheless, when the Torah comes and say, my friend, the more you do for me, the more I record and put in your file. There will be a cash out day. One day I'm going to come and reward you in your end. The Torah says, "La'atifcha ba'acharitecha," to reward you in your end. When is it going to be the end? Only Hashem knows where. But one thing we know, that there's a promise. So that you should know, remember again, a person first has to do what needs to be done. Later, if he has time left, he's going to work. He's going to make meetings, he's going to make some efforts. But as long as he fulfills his obligation, whether he's a man, whether he's a woman, plus if he's going to have some time for business, do business. You hardly have time for business, so you work 2 hours a day. It's a big mistake to think that you need to work more than 2 hours a day, because if you're not going to work more than 2 hours a day, Hashem is going to be limited, and He can only send you $20 a day, because that's what you make, $10 an hour. So if you work 2 hours, you're going to make $20 a day. If you work 4 hours, you're going to make $40 a day. Someone who thinks like this is a big Rasha. Big Rasha. He has no confidence in Hashem, and he doesn't understand about the way Hashem runs the world. Plus, he's ignorant, because what he's thinking is against the Torah. The Torah never say ever that if you're a genius, you're going to have more money. That if you have a master from Harvard, you're going to make more money. That if you're going to be healthier than your friend, you're going to make more money. If you be stronger, you make more money. If you be wiser, you're going to make more money. Where? Where does it say it? Where in history you ever saw one prophet or any book in Judaism that indicate that the more efforts you're going to make, the more money you're going to make? If any, it's exactly the opposite. The more efforts you put, you're hurting yourself. And that's what people don't understand. People who went to colleges and went to exams and another master and another degree and this and that and meetings and phone calls and working until midnight, flying around, and in the end they made $10 million. When they come to Shamayim, I promise you, Hashem tell them, you made 10 million, you could have made 20 million by working 1% of the time you work. Now what's the difference? Yes, you made your 10 million. You could have made it with investing almost nothing if you only had faith in me. And you know that what I promise, I'm going to keep my word. And then you would have also Torah. Now you only have 10 million, but you don't have Torah because you never had time to learn Torah. And what's the Torah say? Le'olam ya'aseh adam torato keva ve'melachto aray. There's an halacha. Every Jew must make the Torah and the mitzvot his life, the main thing of his life, and business as a secondary thing, not important. By the way, like a hobby, it's a secondary thing. Why? We have to put a little bit efforts. The Torah says you are going to make a very little effort, and I'm going to do the rest for you. We should know, I once told you, that's maybe the time to give you some of the stories that I told you in the last few years, for those who heard those stories in the past. Now it's the time to put them together. You may think that nature is nature, logic is logic. We have to behave according to the laws of nature. What do you want from us? We know, for instance, if we're having a flight at 12 midnight on Motzei Shabbos, and we have to get from Monsey to Kennedy Airport, and now it's already 10:30, let's say, we might as well not leave. Why? By the time we get to Kennedy Airport, if we're lucky, it will be 10 minutes before the takeoff. By the time we go to security, by the time they open the suitcases and take our shoes off, and who knows what lines it's going to be, you're never going to make it to the plane. You have to be there 2 hours before or 3 hours before today, and you only left an hour and a half before the takeoff, and you have about an hour and a half ride. What's the point of leaving? Most Jews in the world would not leave. They'll call and ask when is the next flight. But however, I know one Rav, I told you once about him, he had exactly the same case. My friend is not here anymore, he's in Israel by now, but that story is more than 12 years ago. Midnight, he has a flight, midnight, 12:30, that's the flight. Shabbos ends in Monsey, it's always later than Queens, at least by half an hour. So almost by the time you come out of shul, it's 10 o'clock. Especially this Rav praying very long prayer. And he's the last one who finished. Everyone already finished Havdalah at home. He's still in the shul praying. But he has a flight to catch. And he comes 7 months out of the year. He goes from one place to another. He's collecting money for his yeshiva. He has a yeshiva in Bnei Brak, 700 children. Very successful. He did a lot in his life, this person. So what happened? By the time he finished praying, by the time he gets home and he sits with his Havdalah, it's already 11 o'clock. He tells my friend, Benny, now we're ready to go. And this guy is very nervous. We're not going to make it. How are we going to make it? There's no way to make it. By the time we get to the airport, we're going to see the plane took off. So this guy, Benny, is thinking now I'm going to spend 3 hours of my time for nothing. So he said, Kvod Harav, why don't you call and postpone the flight? There's no point of leaving. So he said, what, you're the new boss of this world? This is real now, real. It's not going to make a fool out of him. His time is also valuable. Are you the new boss of this world? So he said, well, what's the point of living? How are we going to make it? He said, if I have to be there tomorrow in Israel, then I'm going to be there. Why? I didn't sit here and drinking tea. I didn't go to sleep. I had to pray. I pray as usual. I have to do Havdalah. I do Havdalah as usual. Why? First comes the mitzvot. Later, if I have time to get to the plane, very good. If not, I'm going to stay another day. But that's already not in my territory. I'm not the new God here. I have obligations to do. I fulfill my obligation as I normally do. Now I'm finished. It's 11 o'clock. There is a 1% chance that I'm going to make it. That's it. The rest is not in my hand. This is the way he lives. This is the way he lives, this person, all his life. So they get on the road. I don't have to tell you the feeling if you're the driver. You're going to drive an hour and a half each direction for no reason. He's trying to drive fast. At least maybe there's going to be a chance. So he tells him in the middle of the way, why are you rushing so much? It's dangerous the way you drive. Drive slow. Drive normal. You see, 55, don't drive too fast. Say, Rav, we don't have a chance to get there. So drive normal. You don't understand? It's not in your hand or in my hand if I'm going to make it or not. We're only living according to what Hashem wants, not what we want. So now he tried to drive slow. They get to the terminal over there. El Al terminal. They go inside. I don't have to tell you now what's going on. The time of the takeoff is over a few minutes ago already. The plane supposedly took off. They come to the tellers over there, the El Al, the desk. Nobody is there. Quiet, empty terminal. So my friend is standing watching his car that he won't get a ticket, and he sees, now should I drive? If I drive, how is he going to come back to Monsey? So I got to watch to see what's going on. So he's standing 1 foot inside, 1 foot on the street. And you see that he's standing over there by the teller. He's not screaming. He's not calling anyone. He stands like this. Mamash, this is the story. He's telling me how it is. He stands like this and waits. So he gets very nervous now. He says, what's going on here? He runs inside. He goes, excuse me, anybody here? Then the lady comes out. It's written in the Torah, Melechet tzadikim naaset bidei acherim. If you're righteous, you don't have to make a beep. Everything will be done for you by servants. They're going to do the job for you. You'll see. I'll give you a few stories. You'll see how it proves it. So he screams. One lady comes out. Yes, can we help you? He says, hey, he has a flight. The flight to Israel. He said, what do you mean, the flight? The plane took off already. What? Now you arrive? Yes, we're religious. We come from Monsey. So she said, why you made a flight on Saturday night? It wasn't smart to do it if you couldn't make it. He said, listen, don't tell me now this. I'm only the driver. So it's over. Should we go? He said, let me double check. She goes inside. She brings another manager. He comes with a walkie-talkie. Yes, what can we help you? Yeah, he's for the flight. Hold on, let me see. He calls somebody. They speak. He said, yeah, you're lucky. The plane is standing on a track. There's other planes taking off, so there's a delay. The plane is standing there ready to take off. So she said to the guy, but we gave his seat to the standby. So he says, he's standing all that time. He's not trying anything. Hey, maybe you push me anyway. I must be there. I have a wedding. I have a funeral. No lies, no nothing. He just stand there and wait. So in the end, they say, okay, let us see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. They call up something. The car comes in. They say, okay, sir, we're going to put you in business class. First class. Why? They gave his place to somebody else. Now they're going to put him in first class. So they take him with the car, they bring the stairs with the car, everything for him. They open up the plane. It's unbelievable. So this guy said, I've never seen in my life such a thing. And they put him in first class, and his suitcases are the first one who comes out. You know how it is. The last one who gets on a plane, his suitcases comes first. This is the story of this. He got on a plane, he gets to Israel. He gets on a plane, he gets to Israel. Another example, there was one time a story in a yeshiva. The Rav said to his student, we know that we have to trust Hashem to feed us. He feeds the bugs, he feeds the elephants, he feeds the Indian that bow down to Buddha. A minute later, Hashem is very angry at them for what they do. But a minute later, he supplied them with their steak and French fries. Who sent it to them? Hashem. Why he sent it to them? He's angry at what they just did. They bow down to idols. They asked for the parnasah for that statue. And Hashem is very angry, as the Torah says, and he supplies them with their money, with their food. Right? Kal vachomer to the Jews. So the Rav says, we're going to go today to the forest, and we'll see how we're going to manage without the cook, without the kitchen in yeshiva. If we're going to get food over there, if you have faith in Hashem, you're going to get your food. They get to the forest. Breakfast did not show up. Lunch did not come. It's already 4 p.m. One student tells his friend, listen, this rabbi is old-fashioned. He's old-fashioned. It's 4 o'clock already, we never got his breakfast. Where is Hashem sending us food here? Hashem is not sending us anything. Let's go back to the yeshiva, let's eat. We worry about ourselves. If we're going to depend on him, we'll starve here. Slowly, they snuck out and they got back to the yeshiva. They ate very well in the yeshiva. Now the guy told his friend, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." What about our friends? They're starving over there. Let's take the food with us. You bring the bread, I'll bring the pot, and let's bring food over there. So they came slowly. They put the food behind the Rav. The Rav was speaking to the student. They came behind him through the trees. They put it on the side. Slowly, they went. They sat. After a few minutes, one guy got up and said, "Rabbi, you were right. Hashem sent us from Shamayim food. It's even hot. Look, steam comes out. Bread, everything." So the Rav was very happy. He started to dance. Hashem, you never let us down. Always you're there for us. And everybody's laughing. Nice show. A few days later, Friday, the Rav speaks about the parasha before Shabbat. The Rav say, I know there are 2 clowns here. They think they're smart. They went behind my back to the yeshiva to eat. Even though I said that if you're smart, you're going to stick to the Torah, you trust Hashem, and somehow the food will get right into your mouth. You don't have to put any effort. You have to fulfill your obligation. The rest is not in your hand. We came to the forest, and they went and ate. They just don't know one thing. Because they are the only 2 here in this yeshiva that didn't have faith in Hashem. So what did Hashem do to them? Hashem used them to be our servants, to go get us the food. You understand how it works? If you and your friend, one have confidence and the other don't, Hashem will take the other and make your servant to serve you. He's going to run for you, he's going to drive for you, he's going to bring your car, he's going to take the things to the tailor. He's going to suggest, he's going to do it for you. Why? Because you had faith in Hashem and he doesn't. So one other thing we learn now, the more we have confidence, the more we're going to get. So we better hurry up to try to work on this confidence. One other thing is shidduchim. The most common problem in the Jewish world today is singles. So many thousands of guys older than 35 and girls never got married so far. Is it coincidence? Of course not. It's a punishment. It's not coincidence. It's a punishment for the way we behave. Since most of the people in the world are not modest, and the value of marriage went tremendously down, marriage is not worth what it used to worth, Hashem is not so anxious to make a lot of marriages. Why? 70% of the couples get divorced anyway. What's the big deal here? Maybe it's better not to. You know the joke that in Israel, when you go and register for the Rabbanut, you have 2 offices, one for marriage, one for divorce. So one rabbi was sitting over there reading Tehillim. So one couple came and said, hey, why don't you take a number in the next room? It will save you a lot of headache in the future. So they look at the sign, they say divorce office. So this is what you're wishing us? What kind of rabbi you are? They say, trust me, I'm not wishing you any bad. Statistics don't lie. 70 out of 100 couples who come smiling to this room, showing up within 4 years, crying to this room. The problem is that when they come, they have to start the process which takes about 2 years. There's a line here. I'm offering you now to already register. You use it, fine. You don't use it, even better. But at least when you need it, you don't have to wait that long. Unfortunately, it's so right. So that's a problem. However, even though it's a curse, even though Hashem did it that way, even though of course we deserve it, because nobody gets something unless if he deserves it, if not from this life, then from his previous life, but he deserves it. En Yisurim belo chet, it's a rule in Judaism, you must believe in it. En Yisurim belo chet, nobody has to itch his head if he did not make a sin. If a person was 100% clean, he will never shake, he will never be cold, he will never sweat, he will never suffer any kind of suffering. Even looking for a coin, you're looking for a quarter and a dime came out, another minute until you found a coin to speak on a payphone, even that you wouldn't get. Every aggravation that you have in life, it connects to some kind of sin. A word, a curse, not waking up in the morning, not giving up tzedakah, not keeping Shabbat 100%, not having confidence in Hashem. This is all the sins, one after the other. So, if a person sees that he's already 35, 40, and he's not married, what's the solution? Only one. There's only one solution. Only one. If he's not going to have faith in Hashem, he's going to run from one shadchan to another, one office to another, running here, putting in eder, making hundreds of phone calls, running around to single parties that they're fooling him constantly to take away his money. No matter what, nothing is happening. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I know so many of those 20 years attend to these single parties. 500 boys, 5 girls. That's how it is for 20 years. And the Satan is blinding him. He doesn't see anything. He doesn't see. You know what's the solution? There's only one solution. You lock yourself in a room, you read an hour or two the whole book of Tehillim, and you begin to cry. Hashem, I don't want to die single. I want to have a wife. I want to make mitzvah purvu. I'm begging you, don't leave me like this. That's the only way. And if this didn't help, then you know it's the best thing could have happened to you. That's the test in life. To die single, without children. Hashem doesn't need you to have children. You already fulfilled your purvu in your previous life. Now your life is about a different kind of life. If you beg and you did everything, you know that you did everything you could. Nothing else is in your hand. Of course, I'm not talking about someone who makes sins, making all kinds of sex crimes. Somebody like this, one little sin can postpone this shidduch by another 10 years. You have to understand. There's no, those people who think they're going to continue to live with their sin normally, and just by crying and praying every day, they're going to solve the problem. It's a big mistake. The first thing is sur mera. First of all, remove your way from the evilness, from the bad sins. And then va'aseh tov. Sur mera va'aseh tov. Now I'm going to give you a few examples from this great book that came out. The Rav, the Mechaber, in his introduction, this is what he writes. Pay attention. This book revived many people, made them happy, made them stronger. Sick people became healthy. Depressed people came back to life. People who lost their happiness in life are very happy today. Everybody who read that book testified that this book brought him peace of mind and energy, and he just could not leave the book for a minute from his hand. In many yeshivot, they decided to learn in this book almost every day, not almost, every day. Students, professors, even non-religious people testified that from all the books they read in their life, this was the book that they made the most impact on their life. It's simple, it's clear, it goes direct into the heart. Some of the most righteous rabbis of this generation says about this book that the spirit of Hashem is spilled in every page of it. And when you read it, it's like food for the soul. And it's reviving the soul. It's a big mitzvah to print it and spread it around and make sure that every Jew will get it. And the rule is like this: book that was blessed and everybody who read in it compromise it, whether he's young, whether he's old, in every corner of the world. Even Gentiles, Goyim, that read parts of it, because this book is in English as well, here in New York. It's called Garden of Emunah, for those who didn't understand which book I'm talking about. It's a mitzvah to read. It's a combination of all the sources of Emunah and confidence in Hashem from Jewish literature that was printed in the last 2,000 years. Comes the Rav Arush here, that's his name, from Israel. Combine everything into one book with nekudot, easy to read, simple language, and in English there's a translation also to English, and that mamash can save lives of people. Because almost every person today has agony and pain in his heart. Almost everyone. It doesn't matter whether he has $5 in his bank account, whether he has $5 billion in his bank account. Everyone has stress, everyone has agony, everyone has disappointments, nobody knows what they're doing in their life. People are confused, people don't have a direction, people are not happy from their marriage, people are failing in the education of their children, people do not know what to do next. And it's about time to make order in life. People who read that book woke them up to believe strongly in the Creator of the world. And the Creator of the world, there's nothing more important to Him than believe in Him and depend only on Him for whatever reason. I know that you may ask, why God needs that we're going to be so connected to Him? Why does He need us to be dependent on Him? Why does He need us to pray to Him and to beg Him? The same way you want your son to be dependent on you, to be close to you and come for you to help when he needs. It's a spiritual desire. The same thing this God has for whatever reason. Why don't we understand the intentions and the wishes of this Creator? Because we are limited. If we would understand everything He thinks and wants to do, we would be like Him, and it would be nothing great. He will be nothing great if we would be able to understand every move He makes. The fact that we don't understand 1% of 1% of 1% of anything He does, we don't understand anything, nothing. We may live in illusion that sometimes we understand why we got this and why we didn't get that. We think. But in the end, we will find out that everything we thought it was just about nonsense. We don't understand anything. That makes Him great. As the Torah says, "Ki lo machshavotay machshavotechem, velo drachai darkechem." My thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. The difference between me and you is like the difference between an eagle to a worm. You can't compare. An eagle flies from one side of the world to the other in hours, and this worm in million years won't move from one side to the other. The worm is limited. I don't have to tell you that this is just a comparison. But of course, there's no way to understand Him, and that's what makes it so great. That all the little that we know is based on what He told us. What He told us, that's it. You don't need more than that. If He wanted you to know 1% more than what we can know in this life, He would make us able to understand 1% more or 10% more. The fact that He put a red line, and this is the highest you can reach, that's it. More than that you will never know. That means for our test in life, this is the best for us. If we would know more than that, we would miss the purpose of our creation. We would miss it, and it would be worthless. 2 people attended to a lecture, 2 brothers. One religious, one secular. Right away when you hear in your mind religious and secular, what do you think? Righteous and wicked. Not necessarily. Because this is a truth story that happened to him, and he brings it here in a book. He say, comes to me the secular Jew, very optimistic, satisfied with his life, being very successful financially, speaking everything I spoke to him. He writes here, Baruch Hashem, do you believe in Hashem? 100%, no doubt. Of course, there is Hashem. He runs the show, everything in His hand. Why don't you keep mitzvot? It's difficult for me. I'm lazy. It's hard. I'm going to try. One day I will. Excuses. We hear it all the time. When it comes to faith, he testified that because of his faith, he knows everything is from Hashem. Everything from Hashem. He 100% live by it. Comes the brother after him, the religious one, come to the Rav and say, Rabbi, you saw that guy that spoke to you? That's my brother. Yeah. How do you explain? Where is the justice? My brother doesn't keep Shabbat, lives terrible life, doesn't keep almost any mitzvah, hardly. But he's always happy, very successful. He's never depressed, always smiling. Maybe he's a fool, I don't know. Foolish people are happy all the time. But I don't understand. Look at me. I keep every mitzvah. I have Yirat Shamayim. I pray every day. I do so many things. I don't make sins. I'm afraid to make sins. I'm miserable. I'm not happy. I'm upset. I'm depressed. I'm not satisfied. I feel I achieved nothing in my life. How do you explain it? I don't make money. I don't have a good job. I lose money all the time. I have problems with my none. I don't know where to start. So the Rav told him, why you say there's no justice? This is the justice. He said, why? Because your brother is better than you. I say, what do you mean? How can it be? So very simple. I'll explain. What was the purpose of the creation? That the Jew will seek for God and be as close as possible to Him. Where does it say it in the Torah? Le'ahava et Hashem uledovka bo. To love your God and to be stuck to Him. Stuck like a crazy glue. All the time, in every second of your life. And another place it say, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. Hashem is in front of my eyes always. Always mean always. Not even 1 second I forget about Him. Always. So many sentences in the Torah that says that the obligation is to love Hashem and to listen to Him and to follow Him and to ask Him and to talk to Him and to be with Him and to think about Him and to be impressed by Him. So many obligations. Each one of the list that I just gave you, it's a separate mitzvah. To love Him, it's one mitzvah. To be dependent on Him, it's another mitzvah. To talk to Him, it's another mitzvah. To appreciate what He did is another mitzvah. It's a list. You walk, you do 5 minutes of some conversation and thinking, you can do 5, 6 mitzvot right there. So he say, because Hashem wanted us to get close to Him, He gave us the Torah and the mitzvot to make a connection. Your brother, even though he doesn't keep the Torah and the mitzvot, naturally already reach a very high level of emunah in Hashem. He speaks to Hashem in his language. He knows everything happens is from Hashem. He knows what happened in the world yesterday was from Hashem. It's 100% clear to him. One day he will keep mitzvot. It's just a matter of time. Don't worry, Hashem has His way. He give him a patch here and there. He'll put him in the right track. Just a matter of time. You, however, in a very serious problem. You already keep mitzvot for years. You Baal Tshuva, you call yourself. You're afraid to make sins. But you are not connected to Hashem in your heart. You don't love Him enough and you don't have faith in Him. That's why your life is like this. Why you think Hashem punished you? Why Hashem hit you day after day, night after night? Because of a punishment? No. Every patch that you get, it's a wake-up call. Another wake-up call, and another one, and another one. Perhaps the next one will help. Where does it say in the Torah that if you get suffering, Hashem loves you very much? And if you don't get any suffering, that means Hashem ignores you. You're the last on the list. Where does it say it? Et asher yeohav Hashem yeyaser. The one who Hashem loves, He is torturing. Or the one that Hashem is testing because He wants to give him a huge reward, He is testing him like a father testing his son. כאשר ייסר איש את בנו, כך השם אלוקיך מייסרך. The same way a father that loves his son, testing him, and the tests sometimes are painful and difficult, the same way your God is testing you. Bottom line, את אשר יאהב השם יוכיח. Someone who Hashem cares for, He always punished, always beat him up, always hit him, always interfere with his plans. He wants to go here and Hashem interfere with his plan. He turn him to a different direction. Every plan he has, Hashem is ruining it for him. That's a sign of love. The father doesn't give up on his son. The father that let his son do whatever he wants, okay, no problem. Take money, take whatever you want, get the car, here is the credit card, just go. Far away that I don't have to see you. Just go. Do whatever you want. Don't come here. I don't want to see you. Have a great life. The son may think it's a gift. But the father knows very well that that's not a gift. He's kicking him out. And the Torah says, Meshalem la rasha el panav la avido, paying the wicked person cash to his face to destroy him. To destroy him for the life of eternity. Nothing can be worse than all these people around you that you are always jealous with, day after day, night after night, all your life. You will see in the end, when you see the end of you and the end of them, what are you going to get as opposed to what they are going to get. You will never forgive yourself for a second that you were jealous with all these losers around you driving all this fancy car and on Shabbat here on Main Street. You would be so disappointed that you were such losers, not because you did not achieve something, because you were jealous with these fools that have no Yirat Shamayim, no achievement, no mitzvot, not 1 point of credit. And the little that they had, they already got paid. They come empty, naked, and you come with a huge account. And in the end, you will see the day. Whether it's your boss, whether it's your uncle that think is a big shot, whether it's your landlord, it doesn't matter who is involved here. In the end, he's gonna beg you, say something about me. I gave you a discount. I was nice to you. Once I gave you donation. Say something to help me. That's what's gonna happen. Where does it say it in the Torah? Asot ha-reshaim efer tachat kapot ha-tzadikim. Going to make the wicked people ashes under the feet of the righteous people. The Zohar says that there's a place in the world to come which called heaven and the other place called hell. Everybody knows about it. Even the Muslims, the Christians, the Hindus, everybody knows after life the real story begins. It's a conscious thing. It's psychology of every human being. And everybody knows one thing, that the wicked people goes to the hell and the righteous people go to heaven. I'm not talking about reincarnations and all the other things. We are now, just for the argument's sake, we're comparing between heaven and hell. Comes the Zohar and says, the righteous people sitting in the world to come with a spiritual crown to their head. It's only the soul, there's no body. And enjoying the sweetness and the greatness of Hashem. Do you know, you understand the translation of this sentence here? Do you understand what we just said here? Enjoying for eternity the sweetness and the greatness of Hashem for 20, 30 years of keeping mitzvot and having emunah. Yes, they had money. They don't have money. Who's going to care about this in the end? I was healthy. I was sick. I was married. I was single. All these things will be nonsense in the end. The bottom line, you followed your test and you passed it or you failed. That's what's important in the end. עין רואה ואוזן שומעת וכל מעשיך בספר נכתבים. There's an eye that watch over you and a ear that listens to every beep you make, and everything is registered in your file constantly as you live. Every second, this lecture will be shown to you when you come in front of Hashem. Hashem will show you if you listen. Hashem show you if you slept. Hashem will show you what's went through your mind. You will have to report every thought you have. You cannot escape anything. Every sin you did under the bed, in hidden rooms, on the street, every lie, every pretending, every show off that you made, everything in the end will be analyzed. Why you were jealous, why you were angry. Do you had a reason, you didn't have a reason, where are we going to hide? And the worst part is that almost every person today is a thief, and that's the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems. Almost every person is a thief. What does it mean, a thief? We may think that a thief is only somebody who robs a bank, or someone who broke into a car and stole something, or someone went to the supermarket and took a chocolate bar and put it in his pocket and walked out. How are you doing today? Until the security come from the back. You didn't know there's a camera over there. And then they shave his beard on Main Street. I'm not talking about the Chilul Hashem over there. No. You don't need to rob a bank to be a thief. You don't need to steal from the supermarket to be a thief. That's, of course, everyone agrees it's a thief. You know what is a thief? Huh? You know what a thief is? A thief is, you need a napkin. You went into the pizza shop on the way, you went inside, you took a napkin because you needed to clean your hand without permission, and you came out. How much a napkin cost? 5 cents? Few napkins you took. That's a thief already. That's already a stain in your file forever. What's the way to correct it? To go back to that place and pay them for the napkin. Believe it or not. You know, there's another way to be a thief. You a guest somewhere by your cousin. Your cousin needs to leave the house. And you're there in the morning. You say, okay, I'm leaving you the key. I'm leaving. You left the house and you left the light in your room on for 2 or 3 hours until you came back. And then you shut it. 3 hours the light was on. You're a thief. You wouldn't do it in your home. You make sure you close the air condition, everything. But in somebody else's house, you don't care. But there's other ways to be a thief. To take a loan. Take a loan, we have to assume that every person who walks with a yarmulke, when he comes to get a loan, he has 100% intention to return the loan. If not, then he's the father of all thieves. Somebody who comes to take a loan, loveh rasha velo yishalem, the Torah says. Right away, the Torah says you loveh and you don't pay back, you borrow and you don't pay back. Right away, Hashem called you in the text, wicked. Wicked right away. Loveh rasha velo yishalem. But this is somebody who has intention to keep the money and pretend that he doesn't have to return. I'm not talking about somebody like this. Then for sure he's a wicked person. We are talking someone innocent. He really needed a loan. He had a problem, serious problem. He needed a loan, $5,000, $10,000. But at the moment that he took the money, he had all the intention in the world to return it back. However, when the time expired, he couldn't pay back the money. He doesn't have. Why? The husband doesn't make enough money. There's bills. There was an accident. They have emergencies. They have to pay the yeshivot. If not, they throw the son out of school. Fine. Excuses everyone have. I can almost swear that there's not one person in the world, almost swear, I say almost because there is always an exception to the rule, that there's not one person in the world that borrow money and is not wicked. I can almost swear, and I prove it to you. I'll explain what I mean. I'm sure that I have to give the benefits of the doubt that every religious person that has a chazakah of righteous person, when he borrowed money, he had all the intention to pay it back. However, his plans and Hashem's plans not always work together. Hashem didn't want to send him 500,000 to pay back. So he only sent him 20,000 that year, and he couldn't pay it back. And the rest of the story is well known. But here is the point. When you owe money, your friend takes you to court, to Beis Din. Say, hey, the time expired and you didn't pay me back. So you come to the judge, you show him your bank account, they investigate you, you prove that you don't have the money. So in the end, the Dayan in the Beis Din say to the guy, what can you do? What do you want to do with him? He lives in rent, he doesn't have anything, he doesn't have a car, nothing. What do you want? Sounds convincing, but not. It's not the case. I want to ask you this. If you owe money to a person, whatever you owe him $5,000, you owe him $1 million, it doesn't matter right now the amount, just to understand how it works. And you walk in the street smoking cigarettes. You allowed to smoke? What do you want, Rabbi? I have big desire for cigarettes. I can't live without it. What? I know I'm killing myself and I still smoke. That's one thing. You want to kill yourself, it's your problem. Every day you buy a pack of cigarettes for $7, multiply by 20-something days that you smoke, here you go, $300. If you give your friends every month $300, after 20 years you pay back the loan. You take your kids to buy ice cream once a week, once a month. Who gave you permission? You owe money. You bought flowers to your wife on Friday night for Shabbat. Who gave you permission? You're a thief. You owe money to another person. When you steal money from another person or when you borrow money from another person, the Torah says that you took his heart. You took a part from his soul and is in your hand. Gozel et nafsho. That's what it says. Gozel damim, the bloods of another person. So, if you search in the life of every individual, for instance, he had an old-fashioned phone, and he upgraded it to a smaller one with all kinds of tricks. Every day they come up with a new phone. He only paid another $50 for the next phone. Here you go. Here is another bad mark in your file. Almost every second of your life, Hashem puts another mark. You come to Shamayim, you're sure, I'm clean. I didn't pay the $1 million that I owe, but I didn't make money. I went bankrupt. I'm clean. You come, Hashem will show you a list of the things that you did in your life, and He multiply all of them, and He adds all of them together. It will be more than what you owe. See, 500 times in your life, ice cream. How much? $1,000. 5 watches you bought, $1,000. You upgrade your phone 5 times in the last 20 years, here is another $1,000. He adds everything up. Could you live without it? The answer is yes. Could you live without cigarette? It would be difficult for a few months, but yes. Could you live without flowers? Yes. Could you live with only 1 pair of suit instead of 5? Yes. Could you live with a very old car instead of leasing a new car? Yes. Could you live in a 1-bedroom apartment with 10 children, one on top of the other, instead of living in 3 bedrooms? The answer is yes. What are you going to say? One of the most serious sins. And that's why we have a very serious problem. All of us. Why? All of us have a very serious problem. So what do you know what we have to do? And here's what we have to do. We have to cry to Hashem every second, just for that. Why? Because stealing, it's a serious problem. Almost every sin can be erased by making tshuva, by repenting. But you make tshuva all your life. You don't pay back the money unless if the people who you owe money forgave you. And there's a way, by the way, to do it. That's another lecture. Just to give you an idea, almost every Jew, after a few years that you didn't pay him back the loan, you can always call him and say, listen, I owe you a lot of money. We live very poor. We're trying, but we just don't have. I could give you maybe 100 and there, here and there, but technically I don't have the money. So maybe you forgive us. You try with this. Forgive the money. Hashem will give you a lot. Sometimes He will say, okay, don't worry about it. I forgive. Here you go. You're clean. 1 word, you got clean. You got saved. If we say, no, why should I forgive? What do you mean? I wait 5 years for you. So, okay, you know what? Let's make a plan. I'll give you $20 a month. Let's start. What happened? You started giving $20 a month, then you died. You're 60 years old, you died. You didn't pay all the loan. At least you started. You understand? You start with the mitzvah, you die in the middle, maybe Hashem will count it, the whole mitzvah. There's a lot to do. The problem is that people think that if they're gonna borrow and steal and do all kinds of things, it's fine. And that's why we look like this. Then we wonder why we don't have blessing, why we don't have this, why we don't have. Sometimes people come and say, okay, listen, I wanna buy a house and I want you to lend me such an X amount of money. Or I want to open a business and I need you to lend me money. So the person sometimes asks, tell me please, what happens if you're not going to be successful? How are you going to pay back the money? No, why you talk like this? We will be successful. Hashem will help. What? We will be successful. Wrong. Not allowed to take a loan. If you have no way to sell something and pay back the loan, you're not allowed to take the loan unless if you tell the person, I'm borrowing this money with a serious chance that I'll never be able to pay it back. If the business will go well, I'll pay it back for sure. The business won't be well, I'm not going to be able to pay you back the money. So 9 out of 10 people won't give you the money, but if Hashem wants you to have the money, I promise you, He will put in the heart of one of them to give you the money, knowing there's a 50% chance that you're never going to pay it back. But at least you say it. You thinking that by saying to him, listen, I'm borrowing the money, but there's a 50% chance that I won't be successful in the business. I don't know Hashem's plans. Maybe the business is not good for us. We're thinking that we're going to do well. Maybe Chas v'Shalom is another way to clean us from the sins. We're going to lose all the money and the efforts, and so you have to know, maybe we won't be able to pay it back. Or instead we're going to give you a diamond ring or something. If we agree, then you're clean. If you never told him, you have a big problem. It's a problem. People don't know the halachot today. I'm only saying what the halachas say. I'm not making it up. Let's hope, Be'ezrat Hashem. Let's hope. Again, remember, the idea is to get purified, to be holy, to watch our eyes. one of the things that blind us and makes us confused is this lousy television and commercials all over. Acapulco, Las Vegas, you go to the casino, you'll be a millionaire, you do this, you do that, all the time, show you lights, show you beautiful things. You're going to watch all these illusions. How you want your heart to follow Hashem with all this nonsense? Same thing with the children. You let them see all this all the time, and then you wonder why they don't want to learn. You wonder why all their mind is about nonsense all the time. It's what you enter your computer. And what happens when you enter a virus into your computer? You gotta clean it. So what do? That's called shtifat moach. You wash the brains from all the garbage and re-enter the right information. If not, everything you're going to have in life will be false alarm. You have back problems for no reason. Why? Because you convince your brain that somebody who picked up a refrigerator, his back is going to hurt the next 3 days. Wrong. Your brain is reacting, is getting nervous because this is what you told him. So he sends pain over there. There's a Dr. Sarna, I think he's a goy. He has seminars and he proves to people that all the pains that we have in our life, it's all psychological. There's no reason for any pain. No slide disc, no problems, none of this. It's all baloney. Why? Almost every person in the world has at least one disc, slide disc in his back. Almost every person. Some people have pain, some people don't have pain. If that was the cause of the pain, everybody should have the same pain. Some people have pain, some people have nothing. Why? Because it's all psychological. Sometimes a person don't have any problems. They check, they do an MRI, everything, and they have pain. Why? Stress, fear, problems, worry. Is worry what's going to be? The muscles shrink. When a person is worried, the muscles behave weird. What makes the muscle behave weird? You worry, you have no faith. Look how it's all connected to faith. You're angry, you have no faith. What are you angry about that person? He cut you in traffic. Hashem cut you in traffic. Not him. It's nothing. With or without him, Hashem wanted you to have that test. You don't understand. Why Hashem sent you that goy and not to your friend? Because Hashem wanted you to get the spit in your face, not him. If you live like this, the Rambam says, when did I know that I made it in my life? When I was on a boat and I was laying down and one guy came and did his bathroom in his face. And he did not make a beep. I said, Hashem, thank you for the shower. Show me one in today's generation that say, thank you, Mr. Goy. Nice of you. Thank you for the gift. Imagine what embarrassment the goy would have if you open up your eyes and say, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work on myself. It's hard, you're boiling inside. Akol letova. Everything Hashem does letova. Right? Hard, right? It sounds hard. It's much easier than what you think. Much easier. I'll tell you a last story for tonight, another minute to give you a good taste in your mouth. And this is that story. Maybe some of you heard it, those who came to me for Shabbat and the table, you hear it again. When you hear the story twice, you remember it. I heard that story from a good friend of mine from Yerushalayim, and this is the story. 25 years ago, approximately, there was 2 Avrechim in Yerushalayim learning in yeshiva. One of them is a big Rav today, is a big Kabbalist in Yerushalayim. He has a big yeshiva. His name is Rav Benayahu. Benayahu Shmuel is famous. In Israel, everybody knows who he is. The other one, I hope I'm not mistaken with his name, I pronounce it right, his name was Todor. So Todor, that was his last name. This Todor look what we call weird. A weirdo. Looks weird. Smiles, walk in the street, his clothes is not exactly Armani, walks in the street, he doesn't look exactly the type that everyone wants to look like. So some people, God forbid, they make fun at him, it's not 100%. But what's so special about this Todo, that he has very, very, very strong confidence in Hashem. Such strong confidence that you're not going to believe when you hear this story. So this Todo, one day went with a bunch of Jews to demonstrate about those who's Mechalel Shabbos in Yerushalayim. They scream, Shabbos, they lay down on the floor, they don't let the car pass. It happens until today almost every Shabbat. So these what does the police does? They arrest two of the Haredim, they put them in jail like this, they get the other one nervous and they run away. So now Todos, it's a loyal soldier. He's not going to leave two Jews in jail for Shabbat. He has to get the money to release them on bail. So he comes to his friend Benayahu. He says, do me a favor, you have $1,000 to lend me? He says, where do I get you $1,000 from? I'm only in Avrech in Yeshiva. This is 25 years ago. $1,000 then was like 3 or 4 at least, like today. So he told him, collect from all the guys, whoever can give, chip in, and I'll pay you back the money. You give them back, make a list. He said, okay, let me see what I can do. Finally, he got the $1,000. So he came to Todos, he said, here is the $1,000. What do you want to do? He said, I'm going to the prison to release them. He went, he released the 2 Jews, he gave them the $1,000. He was very happy. Why? It's a big mitzvah to release Jews from the prison, from the Goyim, because they consider like Goyim, this police. So it's a big mitzvah. It's such an important mitzvah that if you have one Sefer Torah in the entire town, you're allowed to sell it to save the Jews from the Goyim, and he left with no Sefer Torah for the next few years. It's mitzvah. I said, it's mitzvah to release the Jews right away, not to say they're going to be released in a month, because you don't know what's going to happen until then. Mitzvah to release them right away. So now, pay attention what happened. It's unbelievable. So this Todos, Sunday morning, he was so excited that he made that mitzvah. This is a person that loves Hashem. What do we say in Shema Israel? 1,000,000 times we say it and we never meant it. Once. You should love your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your money. The third part, people don't remember so well. Some people willing to die for Hashem, but to give $1,000 for Hashem, it's already a big question. So this Todos now wants to go make a meal for the poor people. Where? In Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai grave in Meron. Yerushalayim to Meron is 3 hours with a car. But of course he doesn't have a car and he doesn't have $1 in his pocket. He lived with miracles. All his life is miracles. One after the other, because he's very strong with his confidence. So he comes to Benayahu. At that time he was in Avrech only. He said to him, listen, you're coming with me to Meron? What for? To make a meal to thank Hashem in public for the miracle that we saved those 2 Jews from the prison on Shabbat. So Benayahu told him, listen, you have money to get how are you going to go? He said, with a cab. So you have money for a cab from here there, you pay me for the $1,000 for the guys. It's more important. He told him, this is also you're going to get. Don't worry. Right now we have an obligation to thank Hashem for the miracle. I had, for the first time in my life, I made this important mitzvah. I want to go to Meron. So he told him, you know what? Okay, I'm going to come with you. He get a cab. Meron. They get to Meron. The driver begins to drive. Just before they get to Meron, there's a restaurant somewhere down the road. He said, stop, I want to pick up the food. Now, he doesn't have $1 in his pocket. Remember what we're talking here about. This is 25 years ago in this generation. Some of you were alive still then. He goes to the restaurant. He comes to the owner. Give me rice. Give me gondi. Give me ashpolo. Give me whatever. No problem. He has now a lot of food. He got to take it to Meron. So the owner of the restaurant, of course, religious, is Glad Kosher restaurant. He sees the way he's dressed, young guy. He said, well, where are you taking all this food for? He said, to Meron. So what's the occasion? It's no Yortzeit today, nothing. He tells him what happened before Shabbat, that he released those 2 Jews and he borrowed the money, and exactly the money that they needed, they collected. The guy the owner of the restaurant was so impressed that he couldn't take money from him. So he said, I chip in. The meal is on me. As this Benayahu sees it, he said, wow, look at this miracle. What would happen? He would have to pay him now. He doesn't have $1. What would happen? Look at the strong confidence. The owner say, you know what? The food is on me. So now he says to him, all right, let's take it to the cab. So they take all the trays. The owner of the restaurant see a cab outside. He said, well, you came with a cab from Yerushalayim? It's fortunate. So we don't have a car. What are we going to do? He comes to the owner of the cab, the driver. He says, excuse me, how much? It's the ride. He tells him whatever it was, $100. He takes out his wallet. He counts the money. He says, the cab is also on me. He pays him the money. Benayahu say, I'm beginning to shake now. 2 miracles in 2 minutes. My hands are starting to shake. Then we go to Meron. We get to Meron. We take all the food out. We put on one of the tables. I raise my eyes. I see the Baba Sali is sitting over there in Meron with all the millionaires from Paris. The Moroccan French came to Israel, a group of them, sitting with the Baba Sali, drinking arak, eating, making suda, sitting over there in Meron, by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai over there. As soon as the Baba Sali saw this guy Todos, right away, he calls him up, come over. Come over. Benayahu is walking after him now. He's following the story now. He comes to the Baba Sali, comes one of the Moroccan guys, the Baba Sali gives him a bracha. The Moroccan guy takes an envelope out of his pocket, hand to the Baba Sali. They get the bracha, he gives him an envelope. Donation. Come Todos to the Baba Sali take the envelope from the Moroccan guys. He doesn't even talk to this guy Todos. Nothing. What are you doing here? You brought the meal? Nothing. He takes the envelope, he hands it to him. Todos takes the envelope, hand it to Benayahu. He said, this is for the money for the jail. We swear. He said, open up the envelope, $1,000 exactly. $1,000 exactly for the thing. He said, this is for the jail. No, he had no doubt. He takes the envelope, he gives it to him. In our generation, you see, people in our generation, you have people like this. Today, I promise you. There's a guy in our yeshiva, Baal Tshuva, 1 year only. We have to kiss his feet. 1 year. You know what happened to him? His parents came from Israel to visit him. Baal Tshuva, his name is Lior, sitting in yeshiva. His father, they have a plane to take back to Israel. They have 4 huge suitcases. Lior doesn't have money and doesn't have car. His father, 3 days before the flight, how are we going to get to the airport? We have to leave 5 in the morning. We have to leave Monsey to get to the plane. We told him, Hashem Yazor, Hashem will help. The night before, Lior, did you arrange a car? Not yet, but don't worry. Hashem Yazor. They go to sleep. Before they go to sleep, his father asked him, we have a car for 5 o'clock in the morning? We have 4 suitcases. He said, don't worry, Abba, don't worry. We'll get a car, Bezrat Hashem. 5 in the morning, he wakes up. He goes to the mikveh. It's dark. Goes into the mikveh. Nobody's there in the mikveh at 5 o'clock. Once he's in a mikveh, he's thinking, what am I going to do now? I need a car. 4 suitcases like this. I need a minivan. I can't take a regular car. Shows up to the mikveh, another guy from our yeshiva, dear guy, Gilad Busi. I tell you the names, you can go check if it happened or not. Gilad Busi, out of nowhere, showed up at 5 o'clock in the morning to the mikveh. It's not an ordinary thing for him. That day he decided to come 5 in the morning to the mikveh. He goes inside to the mikveh. He sees him, what are you doing here? In the middle of the night. He said, I have to take my parents to the airport. How are you going? He said, I don't know, I don't have a car. He said, you have a car for me? Yeah, but you have a small car. He has a small car, Gilad Busi. He said, I have news for you. Last night I came back from the auction. I bought a new car. I came up with a car. Go outside, see. Here is the key, minivan. Minivan the night before he bought from the auction, a green minivan. He has it in Monsey until now. A minivan. He said, here is the key. Take your parents to the airport. Just like that. Shem sent Gilad Busi the night before to get the minivan. It could have been the next week, but that night he got with the van. Why? This guy, Lior, have confidence in Hashem. If we have to get to the airport, we'll get to the airport. We don't have to get to the airport, why should I kill myself? You understand? Different kind of lifestyle. Remember the rule. You can be the richest guy in the world, but you think you are the one who's making the money, and people are helping you, and people are hurting you, and everything is people. You don't have 1 second of your life happiness. Not 1 second of your life you have a peace of mind. You're always full of anger and frustration and disappointment and thoughts and stress. And there's a guy with a penny in his pocket. Even that sometimes he doesn't have. And he's 1,000,000 times happier than you. Why? 1 book. That's the difference. It's with good life to bad life. Bezrat Hashem will be in this level. You'll see the difference right away. Thank you very much. Good night. Kol Tov.